Hey, Guido, thank you. I wonder why we are not getting the roses while the previous speakers were, so I think there is some...
Because you haven't fulfilled the task of just giving a presentation.
Okay. At the beginning, when you were introducing the speakers, you asked to skip the boring slides. And I have to say that's unfair to me, because, I come from the European Commission. I'm expected to be boring. So, what can I do? Okay, let's try to be as boring as possible. But I will only use the slide, for you as a background material. I will not really read that because I think that those are boring. Now, why the Commission is doing that? Probably you already know the story because I have also been attending this forum. Probably this is my fourth time or the third one. I'm not counting them. But basically, the Commission has been asked to do that. It's not our own initiative. It's actually, and I like to recall that it were member states through the Council, so the head of state, who came to us and asked, they said, basically, we are experiencing a nice situation where everybody is going in its own direction at member states level. Please do something. And this is one of the goals of the Commission, to try to harmonize things when it's necessary for internal market reasons and also for other reasons. That's why we started to work looking at this issue of guaranteeing a level playing field through harmonization of existing approaches. But there are also some other issues that started to be lateral and then became more and more central in the work, in the way which we were developing the work. One thing is misleading claims and unfair commercial practices, often called also greenwashing. This is a phenomenon which is increasing in Europe and outside Europe, and is also based on the fact that there is no clear guidance, for example, on what a green product is, what a sustainable product is, and there the regulation terminology is very flexible, and that doesn't help in terms of guaranteeing to the consumers the rights to receive, as French say, reliable, credible information. So we wanted also to shape our work looking at that aspect of the problem. And then there is another aspect of the problem, which is resource efficiency, scarcity of resources, and how this is going to have an impact on the competitiveness of European industries. Okay, I will skip this because this is really boring. Let's move it to the how this has been translated into a first piece of legislation, which was the resource efficiency roadmap, which was published in September last year. Basically, the roadmap is one of those nice documents that we publish at Commission level, where we set the scene, we give the direction, where we want to go. We don't explain how we want to go there, but we say, okay, we will go there. But in this piece of documents, there were some differences, because we also mentioned not only the milestones, which is the vision, but also the actions. And two of the actions that were there, I think there were more than 50 actions, relates to the footprint, in the sense that there it was said black and white that the Commission was going to develop this environmental footprint, which I understand and I agree with Matthias is renaming LCA in a different way. But you will agree with me, it's more appealing than name it BPX323 or whatever is the French one. So at least from the communication perspective, it's fine. And then we also said, and this is important because this gives a first hint on the policy future, that this work will also be used to address the issue of misleading claims and eco-labeling. Now, which are the challenges? And I'm talking about challenges at political level, but as you can read in this slide, they are also technical challenges, because the two are very intrinsically linked. And even if in principle it's true that science should come first and then policymakers should use the results of science, in practice that not always happens. And so we have to find also a way to use, to achieve political objectives and defining the science that support those in a credible and transparent way. So the first challenge is, okay, the Commission is trying to achieve the objective of harmonizing it at European level, but the world doesn't stop at European borders, and supply chain even less. So does it make sense to do this work at European level without already starting to work at the international level? Of course, the answer is no. It doesn't make sense for a number of reasons. And one of that is that there are important initiatives already ongoing at European level. We have heard about Quebec. We are all aware of the incredibly good job that Japan has been doing in all these years, and we will hear more about that probably today, late afternoon. Now, United States has started again to work on that. And Matthias mentioned that United States not having PCR was one of the starting blocking point in that process. Now, United States EPA is developing a guidance on how to develop PCR, so they are starting to move into that direction again. And then there are also other major initiatives. So the Commission wants already to start this international dialogue, which we have done, and probably this dialogue will continue under the leadership of a more neutral body, and probably UNEP will be the neutral body where everybody agrees under the Rio Plus 20 implementation 10-year framework program. This discussion will be led at that level, at least for government, on the government side. Then there is the issue of life cycle data quality and availability. Again, it's a technical issue, but it's also a political issue. Why it becomes a political issue? Because whenever you want to implement a policy which is based on life cycle approaches, then you need a certain point to make reference to data and database. And what we cannot do at Commission level in Europe, we cannot say, okay, from tomorrow you will use this commercial database. That is impossible. We cannot do that. We cannot even list 2 or 3. So it's not just a matter of addressing one specific, but we cannot mention only commercial databases as a restricted number. So either we have to go with a public database, as we have done for the eco-design methodology, where there is a public Excel sheet, or you have to establish a framework where you say, okay, I'm not going to spell out the name of the database, but I'm going to define the quality criteria, which are essential, so that any database which fulfills these criteria can be used for this policy application. We are considering the 2 options currently. Going for an European database is more than a cumbersome option. And once I tried to try with Rana if that was feasible, and it was nearly killing me. So I decided that maybe that's not the best option. So now we are trying to move on the other direction. And there we are not starting from scratch, because there has been, again, an excellent job led by the UNEP Setup Lifecycle Initiative, which led to a guideline on the quality of databases, which was, I think, adopted last year, and correct me if I'm wrong on the date, which is a very good starting block. It's not yet sufficient because it doesn't get too much into the details. For example, they don't have any quantified quality criteria for data. So we think that starting by that and then agreeing on what is missing, that's the way forward to solve that problem. And then there is the PCR problem. Rana already said, and Gregory confirmed, that the environmental footprint methodology, when you want to get to the comparability, it needs category rules. You can, and we are very explicit in the new version that it's forbidden to do any kind of comparison without a category rule for products or for the organization. Again, there the challenge is, are we going to start again from scratch? Are we going to restart doing PCR where already PCR exists? EPD system, the Swedish one, they have approved a lot of PCRs, and there are some other systems who have done PCRs. Or shall we try to build on the existing ones? Of course, the answer that we are giving in terms of policies, we will be developing only PCRs where needed because they are not existing. So where existing PCR are there, we will start from there, adapt those to the needs and the challenges that the environmental footprint is posing, and then we will move forward. Then there is another big issue is SMEs. I mean, in Europe, but not only in Europe, the production process is heavily based on SMEs. And I like to hear Antonin saying that this is feasible, that even all industries can produce the report. Still, it's first I'm eager to read the report after the Parliament will have discussed it, of course. But it's very difficult for us to prove the case that SME can do that, because there is a strong lobby against there. I mean, I have to be very frank. This initiative is not welcomed by everybody at European level. And one of the strong resistance is that it risks to impose extra costs in a very difficult period to a lot of industry players and especially for SMEs. So there really the issue is how we can make that really feasible for everybody. Do we need to simplify the methodology, as somebody is asking? And my answer is no. Because if you simplify too much, then you lose the added value of having a comprehensive methodology. So what we need to simplify is the interface between the methodology, which will be working in the background, and what people need really to do in terms of effort. And then there is the verification system. Again, I'm quoting Antonin, where he was talking about controllability and market surveillance. And there, the question I will ask him later is, what's the relation between the controllability and the verification within the process? Because controllability at the end is market surveillance, but how you deal with the verification, what do you verify, at which point in stage, and how that is going to add, again, difficulties and cost to the entire system. Now, the policy options. All these we are currently assessing in terms of economic, environmental, and social implications. And as you will see and you will read, I'm not expecting you to read that now, this is a very diverse range of options, from the doing nothing, which I keep saying is my favorite option, to the going mandatory or voluntary on different issues. This discussion is now taking place in these hours in Brussels, so I cannot anticipate what will be the outcome of this discussion. But just to tell you, the three main points we are addressing are increasing the reliability of a green performance information, and there we have everything from a new mandatory scheme to basically a light code of conduct on green claims, reducing the fragmentation of the single market, and again, there we go through from a new mandatory product policy framework to a recommendation, a commission recommendation, and then also how to improve the take-up of green products, and then we have several actions we are looking at, mainly strengthening the green public procurement legislation. I can, without again preempting the final discussion, I can already see not coming, and I underline the not coming, any mandatory approach from day one. What is interesting from the policy perspective is that policymakers at senior level are not excluding a mandatory approach when we will be ready.
Maybe check your phone if it's still true.
Later. This is true because this has been more or less consolidated. So what will be really the challenge of this discussion is how we get from the situation where we are now, which is kind of chaotic situation, to a situation where in the future, I don't know how far future, we will have a new mandatory system related to reporting and performance, product performance information. Which are the next steps now? As I was saying, impact assessment of the different policy options taking place now, being finalized probably between October and November. Then there will be, as Rana was anticipating, what we call inter-service consultation, which basically is, because surprisingly enough, also the Commission works in a democratic environment. And so, as in ISO, we cannot have a majority. We don't have a voting system, but we need unanimity. That means that all the commissioners which are part of the college have to agree on this policy. Because at the end, it is not DG environment policies, but it becomes the Commission policies. So they have to sign it. And this is only done through these inter-service consultations, where all the different services have to agree. If one service is against, the process is stopped and sometimes blocked. Then the formal adoption of the communication is probably expected, if we go through the two previous points, first quarter of 2013. My guess would be February, March, not January probably. And then what we want to do, if we will have the communication. Basically, we will do a very similar experiment to what France has been doing, because we are learning a lot and we are looking at them as an interesting guinea pig. So we will do a pilot, which will be a European pilot, on PCR development, so product category rules development for environmental footprint, and sectoral rules development on both sides. There we will have an approach, but I will have slides later, so I will not go into details of that. Then what else we will do? We will do some further methodological work related to PF and OEF. And here again, I need to be clear, and knowing that someone will get upset with me. On some points, we will be deviating from ISO. Because in order to achieve the political objectives that I showed at the beginning, we have to deviate from some of ISO recommendations. And one of the things where we will be deviating is that we will have to introduce a normalization and weighting system in our methodologies. Because if you want to identify the most relevant impact categories, you need a normalization and weighting system. I mean, Gregory was saying PEF is looking at 14 categories. That's correct. In the general methodology, we are talking about 14 categories. But when we move to the product assessment and the organizational reporting, we will only be focusing on the most relevant ones. Probably 3-4 products, maybe someone more for business-to-business communication. But there again, if you want to identify the most relevant, you need a normalization and weighting. That's unavoidable. It's not easy, especially the weighting. I'm not looking forward to the discussion, but that will be necessary. And then we will continue the international dialogue on methodologies and data, which we have started, and we will continue in collaboration with all the other partners. And we will continue the collaboration with the meta network that Mark was presenting before, because I had the chance, and I consider myself lucky to be there. And the last 2 days was really a nice experience, and I got a lot of insights. And there is, as we said, wisdom into action. Really, there are people who want to make wisdom into action. Now, the pilot. As I said, it is about developing category rules. I'm not sure yet if we will be as brave as France in terms of testing the communication part. Not because I don't think that is interesting. Actually, I think that's the most interesting part of the pilot, because it's really the newest element of the pilot. The reason why I'm not now from the beginning saying that we will also do that testing is because there is a kind of misunderstanding on our action. A lot of people say that, okay, the Commission wants to introduce a new label. And that is not correct. So the PEF can bring to a label, but in our mind, that's a side effect of what PEF can bring in terms of added value. We are not considering adding a label. So the risk from the perception point of view is that if we already say, okay, we will have a business consumer test, someone can get that information as a confirmation that the Commission wants to introduce a label. So we will not exclude that possibility, but we also want to test more business-to-business communication. So we will see how to deal with that part of the pilot. The pilot will be based on some products group and sectoral rules developed and led by the Commission, always in a multi-stakeholder approach, as I write in the last line. But we will also repeat the very positive experience of having a call for volunteers where industry will have the possibility to develop the rules. Now, as you know, we are not famous to keep information private, so there is already, this information has been leaking. And so already many industries are contacting me and my colleagues saying, look, we are ready to do the work. As soon as you announce it, we will be developing the category rules and the sectoral rules for our sectors or subsector. But there, important is that we don't allow, and there we will be less flexible than France, we will not allow everybody to go their own way, but we are preparing a document which will set the rules that everybody has to follow, also in terms of developing the product rules and the sector rules. And here again, I like to mention an important piece of work that United States EPA is doing. They are also writing that kind of document. So instead of rewriting a different document, basically what I will be doing, I will be copy and pasting all the parts of that document that are relevant for us and only adding things that are specific to our approach, so that we will have a document that is already kind of harmonized in that respect. How long the pilot will be lasting? This is not written here, not by chance, because that is one of the things we are negotiating now in Brussels. For policy reasons, I know that some senior management would like to have this pilot lasting for 2 years. I am not yet that policy mind oriented, so I have a scientific background, so I would like this to last at least 3 years, because I think that's the time really needed to have a complete set of pilots. We will see how things go. The reason why they want to have it 2 years is this one. In 2014, there will be a revision time for a number of product policies. And in particular, the Eco-Design Directive will be subject to review. The Energy Label Regulation will be subject to review. The Eco-Label Regulation will be subject to review in 2015. The EMAS Regulation, Environmental Management and Audit Scheme, will be subject to review in 2015. And probably also the Unfair Commercial Practice Directive, which is already starting a review process, might have a further review at that moment in time. So you see, it is very important that the results of this pilot will feed that policy review project, because one of the potential use of this is exactly to become the common methodological framework for all product policy related at European level. So we will see how the pilot will be shaped and how long it will last in order to feed this process in the best way possible. And now, this slide, I think the cow is going to interrupt me soon. Oops, oh, that was fast. This slide is just there to show which are the possible current use of the methodologies and what is not possible with the current version of the methodology. So all the things which are within the dotted red lines are the things that you can already do based on the methodologies as it will look like when we will approve it. So you will be able to use it for internal design purposes, for internal hotspots identification, improvement within your company. You will be able to use it for communication, but not for benchmarking, so not for comparative assertions. In order to do that, you will have to have a PCR available, agreed, in line with our requirements. Again, the fact that we are putting there a label in these slides can be seen by somebody as again, a confirmation that we want to move towards the label. That is not the case. I just put that label there because we had a specific study on looking how a possible label might look like. But the information that I want to highlight here is that one of the features that we want to achieve with the category rules is the possibility to identify the benchmark for the product. So by defining the benchmark, there will be a possibility within the PFCR also to have then a comparative, how is my product performing compared to the benchmark, the average product for that group. And again, this is not too far from some similar initiatives that I'm aware of, and I'm looking at Karin because the Sustainable Apparel Coalition is doing an excellent piece of job, not too far from this with the Higg index with slight differences, but she will explain us later that. And there are other initiatives we are going the same direction. So again, and I think this is my last slide, I hope it's clear now to you why we have been doing that, why we have been deviating to some point from the mainstream, exposing ourselves to attacks sometimes, but also I hope it's clear how big is the potential which is behind this approach. And that is, it's just for the reason that this has a huge potential in terms of market changes. The reason why we don't want to run up too fast and going up too early with the legislation, which might cause negative side effects instead of addressing the right problem. So it's better to slow down a bit the process, breath, look at things, look at problems, try to improve the things, and then only when we will be ready with the sound legislation, come out with that. Thank you very much for your attention.